Shall we begin? Let's begin now. Let's begin now.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening live to Rivals React Radio with Lucas and Evan. I'm, of course, Lucas Rojas, as always. And we do have Evan on. Evan, what is up, man?
Hey, man, I'm just enjoying the Friday afternoon. How are you?
Well, actually, I'll let everyone in on a little secret. We have special guest Jimmy Korderas on our program, and right before we went on the air, we were having some political talk. I'm not sure if that'll be good for the show. Jimmy, what do you think, man? It's an honor to have you on. Former WWE ref of 20-plus years and a co-host of Aftermath TV on Sportsnet in Canada. Jimmy Korderas, welcome to the show, buddy. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. Yeah, a little political talk. It doesn't hurt as long as nobody gets, uptight about it. I mean, everybody seems to be very, very. What's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say angry, but there just seems to be so much anger out there, and I don't get it. That's just me. I guess it's because I'm Canadian. Us Canadians are kind of like laid back, but supposedly, anyway.
Oh, are you sure about that?
Well, that's the thing. I think sometimes with some of us, there is a misconception that we're very laid back, but there's plenty of people out here who are. It can be less than laid back. Let's put it that way.
Well, I don't know if that would be the term to describe New Yorkers, but yeah, we're pretty crazy.
Bostonians either. I don't think laid back and Bostonian goes in the same sentence either. So.
Yeah. All right, let's get this thing started. We can be heard on Spreaker.com, SoundCloud, and iTunes. And as soon as we go off the air, this podcast will be available for download. We're going to start things off here. Jimmy, early on in your life, you were a referee for the WWE, most notably on the SmackDown brand. Describe the journey and tell us a little bit about how and why you wanted to become a referee.
It's really crazy because originally you have these thoughts in your head of becoming. I always loved professional wrestling as a kid, and growing up here in Toronto, Canada, we were very lucky in the fact that we weren't subjected to just one or two promotions on television at the time. Growing up, we had so much to choose from on television. Like our main Maple Leaf Wrestling up here in Canada was Frank Tunney at the time, and then later became Jack Tunney. The promoter, he got most of his talent from the Mid-Atlantic territory, the Jim Crockett promotion stuff, the early stuff there in the late 70s, early 80s is when I really started to really, take it in. And but he also got guys from everywhere. Like he got guys from New York, from Vince Sr., and he got guys from AWA. So the Maple Leaf Gardens cards here in Toronto were a very nice mix of different organizations, kind of like almost like turned into kind of like an all-star kind of thing. And they used to run pretty much, every couple of weeks, which was kind of cool. But always a huge fan of professional wrestling, a sports fan growing up, but wrestling I really gravitated towards and always wanted to get involved in it somehow, and I didn't know in what capacity. Obviously as a kid you dream about being a professional wrestler and and being a big star and touring the world and becoming famous and all that kind of stuff. And I happened to meet a guy who worked for Jack Tunney, and one thing led to another, and we became friends. And he introduced me to Jack, and Jack was a cool guy. He kind of brought me on board as part of the ring crew at first, and then Yes, I'm rambling, so please bear with me. So after about a year or so on the ring crew, Pat Patterson suggested to Jack, he says, well, we got the kid. He sits here, he sets up the ring, and during the show he's just hanging around waiting for the show to end to tear down. Why don't we use him? We can maybe make him a referee. And Jack was like, well, I don't know if we want to smarten the kid up. And Pat was like, he's been here a year. He kind of knows everybody and kind of has an idea what's going on. So then, thanks to Pat Patterson, I eventually got an opportunity, him and Chief Jay Strongbow, I have to put Chief in there too, got an opportunity to referee, and the rest is, I guess, history, as they say.
Well, that's an amazing experience. I kind of wanted to follow up with that and just ask you about some of those qualifications to get the job. Was that pretty much the majority of it right there? You kind of gradually got to that point, or was there a lot of specific training you had to go through?
It's weird because at that time, it's not like today where, so many young guys get to go out and work on the indies and try and hone their craft if that's what their goal is. I guess some are just like happy being, for lack of a better term, weekend warriors and just working on weekends and having fun doing that and having a regular quote unquote shoot job. But now, you have the Performance Center and you've got some good young referees down there that they're actually training and molding into what they, I guess the WWE wants them to be, or how they want them to perform.
Right.
Back when I started, it was different. It was like baptism by fire because,
Wow.
It's crazy because I was waiting to be trained, kind of, sort of, but I didn't go out and say, hey guys, is somebody going to train me because I'm supposed to start refereeing soon or anything like that. I kind of sat back and paid attention, so to speak. At the time, Earl Hebner wasn't on board yet, but David was, and there was Timmy White, and of course the late great Joey Morella. So I kind of watched them, asked a few questions here and there, but never really was formally trained. And one day, like I said, Chief Jay Strongbow says, you have your ref gear with you? And I said, yeah, I do. He says, well, get dressed or you're reffing tonight. And I'm kind of dumbfounded with this look on my face. And Chief is kind of like, what's the matter? You don't want to ref? I said, yeah, I do. He says, well, go get shot. I go, okay. And
you're nervous.
First match, nervous is an understatement. So my first match ever was SD Special Delivery Jones versus the Red Demon, who is Jose Luis Rivera in The Mask. And thankfully I was friends with SD, and I went to him and I said, SD, I'm reffing your match tonight, and I'm really nervous because this is the first match I've ever reffed. He just said, don't worry about a thing, just listen to me and I'll walk you through it. And he actually did. He walked me through the match. Of course, I was very robotic in there and very, stiff. But he got me through it, and then slowly but surely, it's a matter of experience, gaining experience and stuff like that. But the first time, man, I'll tell you, if they had Depends back then, I could have used them.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. So I'm assuming as you went through, I'm sure that comfort level grew a whole lot over the coming months.
Yeah, it's funny. I guess I'm weird in a certain. No, I don't want to say weird, but the comfort level grew, but at the same time, I was my own worst critic.
Right.
When I eventually started working television and got an opportunity, because everything was taped back then, nothing was really live.
Right.
You do 3 hours of Superstars and then 3 hours of Wrestling Challenge the next day, and everything was pretty much taped for the 1 hour syndicated show every week. You have an opportunity to watch it on TV, and I'd watch it and I'd go, why did I move like that? Why was I standing there? I should have been over here. You know what I mean? I was like,
right.
But in a way, I think that's a good thing, because you try to learn from that. And also, I would ask others, what would you have done different? Or I would ask someone like Dave Hebner or Timmy, can you watch my match and just tell me what, if you see anything in there, please let me know. And it's even to the final days that I spent in the WWE, I always prided myself in constantly learning, because as time as you guys know, as time went on, the business changes, it evolves, and of course in the WWE sometimes they change the rules on you on the fly, so
Right.
you have to adapt, and you can only benefit from constantly learning.
So there was never like any real pressure as far as referees are concerned. Like I know there's a huge pool of talent in different areas of WWE, whether it's wrestlers or broadcasters or backstage. How would you describe like the treatment compared to wrestlers with the referees, or even just any non-wrestler that worked backstage? How would you describe the feeling of overall treatment? Like, was it the same, or was there more pressure? Just describe that, because I feel like being a referee is one of the most underlooked jobs in professional wrestling, to be quite honest with you.
I think so too. I think it's overlooked and underappreciated, especially especially good referees, because as I like to say, a bad referee won't necessarily ruin a good match, but he can bring it down. But a good referee can make a good match feel even better. And that's where I always felt the pressure from a personal standpoint. I can't speak for others and whether they felt that kind of pressure, but for me, it's like I wanted to be that guy that they can depend on. I always wanted to be that guy where if I was assigned a match and I went up to, hey guys, I got your match today, that these guys would say, okay, cool. Well, we don't have to worry about the ref. He'll hopefully be in position for everything we need him for and stuff like that.
Right.
But everybody's situation, especially in the WWE, is different when it comes to how they're treated backstage, and everybody has a different perception of how they're treated. It's funny because I felt I was always, for the most part, not always, but for the most part, treated fairly. Okay. And there are times where you feel like, hey, you know what? I think I'm getting the raw end of the deal here. Right. So, but at the same time, there's a time to speak up, and then there's a time to say, you know what? I'll let this one slide because this one's not a hill I feel like dying on, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. You have to pick your battles, and like I said, everybody's situation there was different. It's kind of like when you see talent that leaves the WWE. You'll see some guys very negative about their experience there, and then other guys were like, you know what, I had a great time there. It was time to move on, whatever. So sometimes it's people's perceptions on how it is backstage, but I could only speak for myself when I say that for the most part, I think I was treated fairly, and every once in a while, when I felt the time was right, I would say something.
Okay.
Right.
Now, while you were a referee during big matches, is it more of you being able to enjoy the match as it happens in front of you, or having to officiate that match and being alert at all times, like just focusing more on the responsibilities as a ref as opposed to more of you being a fan? Because that's interesting to me, figuring that out.
Yeah, it is hard because sometimes, for me, like you said, it should be about you doing your job and concentrating on helping the match out. Like the referee's job is basically a supporting actor to the two superstars or four superstars, however many guys are in the ring. Like they're the focus. They're supposed to be the focus. You're that supporting actor to help them tell their story in the ring, whatever that story happens to be. So your focus should be that on your job and the performance of your job. But it's hard, especially when you're a huge wrestling fan and you're in the ring. I'll give an example. I did a match on a SmackDown in Chicago one time between Eddie Guerrero and Kurt Angle, and it was a long match. It bridged 3 segments on SmackDown, and they were having a hell of a match. And there was a couple of times I remember in the match where I had to catch myself and say, "Hey, stop watching and do your job." You know what I mean? It was like,
oh yeah.
It's sometimes hard, especially when guys are having a hell of a match. You got to kind of snap yourself back into it and say, "Hey, you got a job to do here."
Absolutely, yeah. So another aspect that is really big when it comes to being a ref is obviously like taking bumps, and when you guys get knocked down, and there's always that long time joke of, oh well, the ref gets knocked down, he's down for 15 minutes or whatever it may be. Were any of the guys that you work with, and yourself included, was taking bumps something that you went through a lot of training to learn, or was it just something that you kind of did on the fly as you went along, and were you a fan of it? Was it something that you liked as an aspect of the job, or was it kind of just annoying to you in any way?
No, yeah, it's kind of funny because if a ref bump is utilized, it shouldn't be utilized too often, because then it loses its meaning and importance, and it shouldn't be just as a transition spot. Okay, how do we get here without we'll just bump the referee so we can get to the next spot. No, it's got to mean something. And it's funny too. You mentioned, do you like taking bumps or not? Until you take your first bump in a match, now that's when the bug hits you, so to speak. It's like, oh, that was cool, I want to take another bump. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But by the same token, as far as training to take bumps, I know a lot of the referees, especially nowadays, do train to take bumps. But my philosophy on referee bumps is that a referee should not take a bump that looks like a professional wrestler. It shouldn't look like someone trained to take bumps.
Sure.
Because then it kind of loses something, because a referee, like you said earlier, a referee takes a bump, he's down for half an hour. It's because he's not a trained professional athlete, quote unquote, air quotes. I'm doing air quotes now. But by the same token, the bump should look awkward. It shouldn't look like a guy trained to take it. So if I get, let's say, clotheslined, for example, I take a flat back bump, the audience sees that and goes, oh,
he's done.
Especially nowadays, the audience will say, man, he took a bump. He took a flat back. It should look a little awkward, but at the same time, try not to hurt yourself in the process.
Exactly.
And that's the, when people call it an art form, that's the art form, making it look. Like for me, especially taking a big bump, if it's a big bump, it's like I want people to go, ooh, that looked like it hurt, and it looked like it wasn't supposed to happen. And if I can get those two reactions, then I accomplished my goal.
Right. Yeah, because you see it more and more, I feel like, over the last few years, you'll see it almost looks like the ref will get into a specific spot just to take the bump, whereas, like what you're saying, more authenticity, like a wrestler accidentally, clotheslines the ref, not like the ref is lining himself up just specifically to get knocked down. So, yeah, and I think you see it more and more now, too. Is that something that you think should be less of an occurrence, or is it, do you think it's maybe overdone nowadays?
At times, it almost seems like it comes in spurts. Like, you don't see a ref bump for a while, then you see like 3 or 4 of them in consecutive weeks or something like that. And it's kind of like, now this is the cool in thing. It's kind of like I'm watching one week. I forget whether it was Raw or SmackDown, but I'm watching like in 3 different matches, guys did the suicide dive through the ropes, and I'm going, guys, like we already saw it. It's sort of the same sort of thing.
Right.
You don't want it to be too repetitive, because then it loses its meaning when it does happen, And as far as guys putting themselves in position, that's the hard part, because anticipating when it's coming, it's coming. So the hardest thing to do is to put yourself in a position without trying to look like you're putting yourself in position.
Exactly.
So when it does happen, I'm like you guys. Like I'll be watching, and all of a sudden I say, "Oh, here comes a ref bump."
yeah. It's not great when you can kind of see it coming.
Yeah, and to me, it's a great credit when one comes in, and even having the experience and thinking in my mind, yeah, I can kind of sense when a ref bump is coming. Right. If they could pull it off where I go, ooh, I didn't see that coming, then cool. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and the other thing about that too is like there'll be certain bumps that aren't necessarily anything big. Like it'll just simply be a push, you know what I mean? And then the referee just gets knocked down for 10 minutes or so. What's your opinion on those kind of bumps? Because there's a difference with the ones that are awkward, as you said, and then the one where it's just like a simple tap, or it's like, whoa, what is this?
For me, it's like it depends on what they're trying to accomplish too. Because if they need it, they need the distraction. If the referee needs to be down for a specific amount of time so that they could do whatever the hell they're going to do in that time that he's down, whether it's a minute or two, then it should be a significant bump. If it's something that needs to be that can be done really quick, I would rather it be something like an accidental, elbow that clips the referee where he sells it but doesn't go down. Do you know what I mean? It's like, man, I just got hit in the face. So now he kind of like turns his back and he's selling that way, and you can do something really quick. It's almost like I prefer those as opposed to, okay, he's down and out and miraculously comes to. I almost feel like the one thing I enjoyed, and I'm, again, not trying to put myself over in this thing, because Charles Robinson was a bit, WrestleMania 24, when I took the boot from The Undertaker, to put me out for a little while so that all the stuff can happen without a referee present.
Right.
It made no sense for me to come back and count the pinfall, if that makes sense.
Right.
So I don't think they use the fact that a referee will get knocked down and utilize a second referee. I'd like to see that a little bit more, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I got to thank Charles Robinson for making that run, whatever it was, 75, 80 yards down that ramp, because I was looking at the other referees on the roster and said, yeah, he's pretty much the only one who could make the run.
That was one of the longest ramps actually at WrestleMania. I remember it, WrestleMania 24, right?
Yeah. I know. If they'd have sent anybody else down, it would have been WrestleMania 25 before they got to the ring.
Yeah, and one other question I had for you here. This is one that's like a bonus one. As far as choosing matches to referee, how much of decision making by WWE goes into that? Like, is there any sort of competition that goes on similar to sports as far as the best referees getting the best games, or in this case, the best matches? Or is it more of just randomized and, whoever gets this match gets that match? Like, what would you describe the decision making in WWE?
To be honest with you, I can't speak for it today, because to me it seems a little more that the younger guys are given a little more opportunity. Back when I was on SmackDown, I could speak specifically for SmackDown during the original brand split, or brand extension, whatever you want to call it. We pretty much they let the referees do the referee assignments back then, and what we did was we just got together and just kind of looked at the card and looked at what the show was, and we kind of figured, like, okay, is there a match you feel like you really want to do, and blah blah blah, and we kind of did it by committee. And as far as the main event went, back then it was kind of on SmackDown. What we did, especially because we had Nick Patrick, we had Charles, we had myself. And then after Nick got hurt his back, Scotty Armstrong was there, so we kind of had and then who else? Mickey Henson was there too for a while. So everybody was, there was no issue with who could work whatever match, and everybody was happy to do whatever match they wanted. It was just by committee. But before that, when Earl was there, it was kind of pretty much Earl and doing all the main events, and then I think for a while there, Kyoto was doing all the main events, and which is all fine and dandy, because they're excellent referees. It has nothing to do with that. But by the same token, if you're going to bring other guys up, you got to give other guys opportunity to referee in those spots too. And that's kind of what we did on SmackDown. We rotated the main events. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
yeah, it definitely does, because today, who knows what goes on there? But it was interesting to me, because in terms of sports, like, they always go by who has the most experience and whatnot. So I was wondering maybe if it'll be the same in regards to the WWE. But no, that clears it up.
Yeah, it's not like but now everybody wants to be like the Ed Hockley of the WWE. Everybody's jacked. Well, except for Mikey. I got to rip Mike. What can I say? My boy from Jersey. What can I say?
So,
Evan, what you got?
All right, so the next question here we got is kind of switching gears a little bit. Do you have a most notable like road trip story from the time you were with WWE that you'd want to share, or anything that's just sticks out to you, like maybe a best memory that you have? It doesn't even have to be from a road trip, just most like fond memory you have of your tenure.
For me, there's so many of them. I mean, like hard to pinpoint one, but for me, I hate to put this guy over as much as I do, but the traveling, the worst part about being in that industry is the travel. Because you're constantly traveling from town to town, whether it's flying and a lot of driving. There is a lot of driving, and if you don't have that, like that, the traveling partners, I traveled most of the time with guys like Tony Chimmel. Right. Mike Chioda traveled with us a lot, and Charles and Larry Heck, the trainer. But for the most part, it was with Tony Chimmel and Larry, which we called ourselves the Three Amigos, so to speak. But a lot of fun times with those guys. I mean, if you have a good group of guys that you genuinely enjoy being around, and you can genuinely call friends and not just acquaintances, and you can and being around those guys help you get through the day, then you're gold, man, because you're very lucky, because it is a tough industry to be around when it comes to the travel schedule. And I know there's some guys who prefer to travel alone, and I don't know how they do it. I don't know how they do it. It's for me, I enjoyed the times hanging with those guys and doing all the goofy stuff we did, and on the rare days off, going mini golfing and doing goofy crap like that, and to be honest with you, it was kind of like my wife called Tony Chimmel my road wife, which was but having it is such a plus to have someone that you feel that comfortable with to travel with, and just be able to help get each other through the day.
Of course. So now a bonus question that is definitely something that I think might be of an interesting topic to bring up is the unscripted moment with Daniel Puder and Kurt Angle. And because I know you were involved with that, and you were the one that quickly counted the 3 count to kind of end the scenario that was going on. I just love to have some of your insight on what was going through your head during that moment, because that's one of the craziest moments that I've ever seen as a fan.
Yeah, it was also crazy. One of the craziest moments I've been involved with in the ring, because of the fact. To me, I didn't know. I don't know if anybody else knew. I didn't know that Kurt was going to call out these guys. To have an impromptu wrestling match. I was under the impression that whoever the winner was going to be, he was going to kind of like amateur wrestle with them a little bit, but that was it.
Right.
And then, I don't remember who the guy was that won the stupid challenge that they had. We used to call them burpees. I don't know what they call them. Those squat thrusts? Squat thrusts? Is that what they were? Anyways, they'd do it until the guys blew up, until the one guy left. And,
right.
And, Kurt wrestled around a little bit with that guy and kind of tied him up in knots and stuff like that. And the freaky thing about Daniel Puder was the guy never got gassed. I mean, like he was in such great shape. So, when he finished with this guy, he asked, okay, anybody else want to challenge? And Puder puts his hand up and he says, yeah. And then he comes in the ring and we're thinking, oh, where's this going? So they started wrestling around a little bit. And I'm looking at Charles and I are in the ring, and Al Snow's back in the corner, and I'm looking at Al, and Al's looking at me like, I don't know, it's Kurt, he can do whatever he wants. So we let them wrestle around. They backed into a corner, and they were kind of jockeying around, and not being at. I'm a little. I don't want to say I'm well versed in MMA, but a little more versed today than I was back then. I noticed that he locked in, I guess, what's called a Kimura. Or key lock,
right?
Kurt Angle, and I didn't know the specific name of it. I didn't know what to call it, but I knew it wasn't good, and I knew he wasn't letting go. And the other thing I knew was Kurt Angle was not going to give up to this kid.
Right.
So in my mind, the only thing I'm thinking is how do we get out of this? I have no idea.
Yeah.
And Charles and I are looking at each other going, this is not good. We're not saying it, but we're looking at each other and we're going, this is not good. This is not going to end well, because Kurt would rather have his arm torn out of his shoulder before he gives up to this kid on television. And I'm going, oh my Lord. What? Then they fell to the ground, and I don't know why. It's not like I said, I'm going to wait till they get to the ground, I'm going to count. Once they fell down and Kurt fell on top of him, I figured, I'm going to count. Mm-hmm. And even though technically Pewter rolled the shoulder a little bit, I still counted 3 anyways. And of course, hindsight being 20/20, it was an amateur kind of wrestling thing. I could have just counted 1 and ended it that way.
Mm-hmm.
But,
That's true.
but it was so on the fly, and I'm like, God, what did I just witness here? And I hope I did the right thing. And I didn't know what anybody was thinking. And then Angle got in Pewter's face and kind of cussed him out. And
oh man,
oh Lord, what is going on here?
That was crazy. But I think I think you made the right call. No question about it. Continue.
Well, I got to the back, and Gerald Briscoe, who is the guy who speaks to us on our earpieces in the ring, who didn't say anything through the whole thing, like he didn't hear a darn thing. I got to the back, he looked at me and just nodded. Mm-hmm. Right? It was kind of like, okay, you kind of did the right thing. And I said, okay, cool. Then I got to the back, further back, and I ran into Fit Finley. And Fit said to me, he said, did they tell you to count? I said, no, I just did it. He said, well, you did the right thing. Good thing you reacted in the way you did. And I was like, oh, good. At least they're not hot about it. Mm. You know?
Yeah, it's an amazing example of just thinking on the fly. And did you have any other experience in your time that was quite like that, or was that just like that one moment that will always stick out for you?
Like a freak accident, yeah.
Mm.
Oh, well, accidents do happen, but, and sometimes, guys, you guys know the term, somebody will get potatoed in the ring.
Right.
And, and it happens, and if you do, sometimes you'll get a receipt for it, so that kind of stuff happens. I remember one time I was refereeing a match, this was a while ago, with Haku and Jimmy Powers. Oh, yeah. And poor Jimmy Powers accidentally popped Haku really hard, and Haku's a nice guy, but when he gets hot, you've heard the reps about this guy anyways. Sure. So Haku, he says, easy, brother. And then he accidentally tagged him a second time. And then Haku took him down and tied him up like a pretzel to the point where Jimmy was playing, I'm sorry. He says, well, that taught him a lesson. The funniest story actually I ever heard was Bobby Heenan told a story with Andre the Giant and the Ultimate Warrior, where the Andre used to love to do that spot where he'd get clotheslined a couple of times, then he'd fall back and tie himself in the ropes. Mm-hmm. But the Ultimate Warrior would come flying like 500 miles an hour and hit him, and you can't hurt Andre. But it was like, okay, brother, you don't have to try to knock over a redwood tree with the clothesline. I'll sell for you, So every night he kept hitting him, and Andre was getting tired of these stiff clotheslines. That, again, you're not going to really hurt him, but at the same time, no need for it. Right. So he goes, by the third night. Bobby says, Warrior hits the ropes, and Andre put his fist up, straight up, and Warrior ran right into it, and the size of Andre's fist.
Wow.
It was bang, right in the mush. And then the next time he hit him with the clothesline, he hit him with a working clothesline, let's put it that way. And when Andre tied himself in the ropes, he looked over at Bobby and said, he's learning.
That's too funny.
Well, there we go. That's old school wrestling for you. But transitioning now from your WWE career to what you're doing today, you're part of Aftermath TV, which broadcasts on Sportsnet 360 and airs in Canada on its own network and channel. What has it been like for you to have made that transition into now being a TV broadcaster and analyst? And also, was this ever a consideration for you, when you were younger, seeing this as a second career for you, being a broadcaster?
To be honest with you, no, I didn't. It's weird how I actually got into the broadcasting side, because after I left WWE, I was okay, time to figure out what I'm going to do next. And my wife says, "Well, why don't you try broadcasting? You like talking sports, you like talking wrestling, you like talking. Period." So I said, "Well, I don't know. You see it on TV, and obviously, and you guys know, you see it on TV. It looks easy, but it's not as easy as everybody thinks it is." Right. So I took a course in it, and then I fortunately ran into a fellow by the name of Arda Ocal, who was working at WWE for a little while recently as Kyle Edwards. Right. And he was working up here in Canada for the Score Television Network, and he's the mastermind behind the idea of Aftermath, which was originally at Right After Wrestling, was the first name of the show. Yep. Which used to hear it all the time. It was after Raw, and right after Wrestling, kind of like fit perfectly. But anyways, so I ran into him, and we kind of hit it off and became friends. And he said, I do the radio show. He says, "Would you come on as a guest one week?" I said, "Yeah, absolutely, sure." And then at the time, he was doing the radio show with a fellow by the name of Corey Erdman, and Corey had moved on to do other stuff which didn't allow him to do the Right After Wrestling show. So, and Raw was doing the guest hosts every week at that time. So the idea was for me to come in and do a guest host gig on the radio show. And I did it, and Arda said, "That was fun. You want to come back next week?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." So then turned into 3 weeks, and then it just turned into a regular gig. Then it turned into a regular paying gig, which was kind of cool. And then they had a television version, which was the original one was with Arda, Renee, who is Renee Young now, and Mauro Ranallo. Wow. And then, so that was the original Right After Wrestling crew, and then after they, Mauro had to he was so busy that he couldn't do the Right After Wrestling as frequently. So I was Mauro's fill-in on the television show. When he wasn't able to appear, I would hop in the chair for him. And then he left the Score, so I became the regular guy there. And then that was in 2011, I want to say, and been the regular guy there since.
That's pretty cool, man. Because me and Evan both have similar aspirations as far as being broadcasters are concerned. So we kind of thought, hey, maybe all three of us are similar in that maybe you wanted to pursue this early on in your life as well. And I remember listening to Right After Wrestling back when it used to air, you and Arda, and you guys were also part of the reason why I want to do this today. Being whether it's a wrestling broadcaster or a sports broadcaster, just listening to you guys having that fun vibe and energy late at night, especially. I'm surprised. No, I'm just kidding. But you know what I mean. Like at night, you guys sounded very animated, always having guests on, and it was pretty cool. And ever since then, it's like it's been part of my inspiration. Evan, anything you would want to add on to that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it just, I'm really interested in being a broadcaster myself, and just seeing the road that someone like yourself has taken definitely provides an inspiring story to me, especially because you've been involved in the wrestling business and part of WWE for all those years, too. So I think your experience is so valuable to what we are looking to do as well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I appreciate that, guys. That does mean a lot. I mean, you talked about the energy that we had. It's when you're passionate about whatever it is, like in this case, professional wrestling. I'm very passionate about wrestling. It's easy to get up for it when you're discussing it. You know what I mean? It's and then I have this weird sense of humor, for lack of a better term, or as Edge used to call them, bad Korderas jokes. Tried to get that hashtagging one day, but it didn't work. But it's just a weird sense of humor. I like having fun, and because that's what professional wrestling is supposed to be, or sports entertainment, whatever you call it. And then that's another thing too. I don't have an issue with it being called sports entertainment because here's why. And again, I'm going on a tangent here. I get why people prefer the term professional wrestling, because that's exactly what it And they kind of feel bad about they don't like the term sports entertainment because they feel like it takes away from what it really is. And it doesn't really. Sports entertainment is really professional wrestling with a different name to market it to bigger companies, larger companies to attract sponsorship and advertising dollars, basically, is what it is. And if you want to attract big name companies like take whoever, like a Coke, Pepsi, Ford, GM, or somebody like that, if you want those guys to be advertising with you, there's this, I hate to say it, there's this weird stigma attached to the term professional wrestling. They still view it as a low-brow form of entertainment, which it is not. But it's that stigma still attached to it from, it's that funk that's been hanging on it for how many years now? For decades, really. So in order for them, see, that's what I try to do. People, I know I get attacked on social media for being a shill for the WWE and a WWE apologist. And
I have seen the tweets.
Obviously these people don't pay attention to what I say. I do critique the product. There's stuff that I don't like on there. It's just that I tend to focus on the stuff that I like.
Yeah, of course.
Instead of trying to be negative all the time. There's stuff on there. See, even on our show Aftermath, it's like what we do is we critique the show. We don't talk about the creative process because I look at it this way. When I watch a show like Seinfeld and they do a joke on Seinfeld that I don't find funny, do I say to myself, well, that wasn't too funny? Or do I say, man, Larry David wrote a crappy joke?
Yeah.
No, I just say that wasn't funny to me.
Right, exactly.
There's this weird, I don't know why there's this, it's almost like a pack mentality now when it comes to attacking pro wrestling and the WWE in particular. I mean, I'll give you an example. I watched the Wrestle. Did you guys watch Wrestle Kingdom 11?
Not yet.
I've only seen the main event, which was pretty amazing, I will say.
Yeah, it was. I really enjoyed the main event, but to me, the people going online and saying, "Well, this is match of the year. This is the best match I've seen in the last 5 years." It's only January 4th when this.
A little early to say that.
And don't get me wrong, it's not that I didn't enjoy the match. I enjoyed the match immensely. I thought it was a great match. Thought a little bit too long. They could have gone about, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes shorter and still had a great match. But see, it's so subjective to what everybody likes, and I think that the WWE gets an unfair shake in the sense that, I'll give you an example. There's another match from New Japan a while back. I think it was a year or two ago when AJ Styles was still there. Yeah, and there was a spot in the match where the Bullet Club, which was Carl Anderson, Luke Gallows, and AJ Styles versus I want to say it was Mike Bennett. And anyways, well, Maria Kanellis jumps on the apron and she starts, flaunting herself in front of Carl Anderson, who is distracted. And she starts dancing on the apron. He starts dancing too. And AJ Styles comes in the ring, stops and goes, "What are you doing?" And, Carl turns AJ's attention to Maria, and she starts dancing. And now Carl and AJ Styles are dancing in the middle of the ring. Yeah.
I think I've seen that on YouTube.
Ate it up. And, of course, look what we're talking about. We're talking about AJ Styles and Carl Anderson doing it in the ring. If they'd have done this in WWE, they would have got criticized out the door for, look what they're making him do. And, he's much better than that. But because it happened in New Japan, it's cool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Very different brand of standard. Yeah. I think. Do you think that if more promotions had kind of had a business philosophy similar to the sports entertainment aspect rather than that professional wrestling aspect, do you think there might be more companies who could, I don't want to say compete directly with WWE, but would definitely have more of a standing in the wrestling industry, whereas WWE is just so far ahead of everyone else right now? Do you think maybe more promotions could kind of come out of the woodwork? More people would be able to recognize them if they had more of that sports entertainment philosophy.
That's a hard question to answer because you look at the WWE has such a head start on everybody else as far as building their brand, and also the marketing machine behind them is just huge. just huge.
Right.
So they have that, and they have their footprint on pretty much the entire planet. You can't go anywhere in the world without seeing any kind of WWE merchandise. They're on television everywhere. And unfortunately, none of the other promotions have that. But the other thing that the WWE tries to do that the other promotions don't is you look at ROH, for example, which, see, I can appreciate, everybody thinks, do you watch just WWE? No, I watch as much as I can, time permitting. I mean, like, I have other interests too, because this weekend I'll be watching the NFL games. You know what I mean? Like, tonight I'll be watching the Leaf game. You know, I have other interests outside of professional wrestling, but I enjoy professional wrestling probably the most out of all of them. So I do watch ROH. I do watch New Japan. I watch Lucha Underground when I can, and I could appreciate the different styles, but I equate it to like here in the Toronto area. I'm a big fried chicken fan, fast food fried chicken. I don't eat it a lot, but I do enjoy it a lot. That's like kind of, I would rank it among my favorite fast food is fast food fried chicken. There are different fast food chains, which I won't give free plugs to on your show, but you know who they are. There's the 11 Herbs and Spices, there's the Louisiana style, and there's all these different fried chicken places. You know, there's one up here where they say that Mary Brown's has the best legs in town. They're all good, but, you know, everybody has their favorite. My favorite one happens to be a small outfit that has about 4 stores, small franchise, that I think for fast food fried chicken blows the other guys away. But they're a niche audience. It's the other guys with the 11 Herbs and Spices and the Big Barrel that cater to a bigger audience.
Right.
You know, it's kind of like, best way I can explain it is ROH is like your hardware store when you need to go buy hardware goods. New Japan Pro Wrestling is your grocery store when you need to go buy groceries. TNA is your is your furniture store when you need to go buy furniture. The WWE is Walmart, where you can go and get all that stuff in one place.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
That's a great analogy, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think people realize that that's the reason why WWE succeeds so much, is not just so much because of sports entertainment, but also I look at it from a job perspective where they offer certain areas when it comes to jobs. You mentioned it earlier, whether it's marketing, broadcasting, there's just so many opportunities there. It's like the land of opportunity in the WWE, and I don't think us fans necessarily realize that as much or value that as much, that it's not just so much about the product, but also in terms of the job opportunities that WWE does have to offer, because I think that's important too.
No, absolutely. And that's the stuff that people tend, like you guys say, tend to overlook. When they watch like 3 hours on Monday night, which I understand too, I get it too. That's a lot of content. You know, 3 hours Monday night, 2 hours on Tuesday night. If you have the network, then you're watching NXT and 205 Live, and you've got all this stuff. There's so much content for them, and they focus only on what they see, and they don't realize that there's so much that goes on beyond that, especially how many people they employ at Titan Tower, at the offices in Stamford, and the TV studio, and all that sort of stuff. They employ a lot of people. It is a huge company. And they don't realize that, and I think that affects the way they watch the product as well, because they tend to say, "I don't know why they did that because I don't like that." Well, you may not like it, but there could be 10 other people that are not hardcore wrestling fans that did like it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And you can't just cater to that hardcore audience, and I think they do to a certain extent, because look at the guys that are in the main picture right now. Kevin Owens, Seth Rollins, AJ Styles, all these guys that are so-called internet darlings that came from the indies have prime spots in the WWE. So when they finally get there, look, Finn Balor, before he got hurt.
Yes.
You know, all these guys are there, and then when they get there, what do? They whine about the color of the Universal title, and they don't like the name of the Universal title. Mm-hmm. Wait a minute. The main event of your pay-per-view is Seth Rollins versus Finn Balor,
Yeah.
And you spent the first 10 minutes of the match bitching about the color and the name of the title.
Yeah, I remember that match.
Who cares?
That was at SummerSlam, and the crowd was more concerned about the way the title looked than the match that was going on in the ring. And I couldn't believe that, because a lot of people came away from that match saying the match wasn't all that good. But myself, I remember I paid attention to the match, and I actually enjoyed the match a lot. I actually thought it was very good. And it's just funny because a lot of people were criticizing the match, and you almost want to say, but were you paying attention to it, or were you paying more attention to the crowd and the way that they'll kind of take over some shows? What do you think of that now that you see more and more of crowds kind of chanting random things? Like you'll hear the CM Punk chants whenever they're in Chicago.
Those are annoying. Those are simply annoying.
And I mean, at first it was like, okay, but now it's been a couple years, what's going on.
Right. And here's what's happened there. And I think Al Snow explained it the best. It's basically, in professional wrestling, the idea was for the talent in the ring to tell their story, to manipulate the audience. And the audience almost seems like they think they're smarter than the talent themselves, and they think that they can manipulate the show themselves. And now they want, basically, and people will disagree with this, a lot of fans will disagree with this, but they do it to get themselves over. When I watch NXT now, and I like Tom Phillips and Corey Graves on commentary, watching the NXT product, but I sometimes turn down the volume because I can't stand the full chant University, because that's all they do. It's like they sit there, and it has nothing to do with what's going on in the ring. They're not reacting to the product in the ring. It's like, oh, so-and-so's out there. These are the chants we're going to do. Okay, let's go for it. And you're missing what's going on. And going back to that SummerSlam match with Seth Rollins and Finn Balor, they missed like 10, 15, the first 10 minutes of the match because they were too concerned with chanting about certain things. Again, getting themselves over. The way I equate it is like going to your favorite restaurant, and ordering your favorite meal. And the food is good. The food is fantastic, but you refuse to eat it because you don't like the color of the plate.
Right.
It's like, I'm not eating this. This plate is blue. I want a red plate.
God!
Come on, man. It's this weird dynamic that and I know that us older farts tend to refer to millennials as the entitled bunch, but when I see and hear stuff like that, it almost makes me think that they're right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, certainly.
It's Monday. It's called Monday Night Raw. It's not Monday Night Raw just for you. Right.
Yeah, and I think that's something that you kind of have a big plethora of opinions with fan interaction, because you have like the casual viewers who you want to make sure come back for more, and then you have the hardcore audience who a lot of people will say they're kind of there no matter what, and I think that's really true to a certain extent, because they threaten, I'm going to stop watching if so and so happens, or this person becomes champion, or this match happens again, but they never actually stop watching the product. They continue to come back for more, so it actually kind of makes them look bad in that way, don't you think?
It's funny you excuse me, it's funny you mentioned that, because this Monday night, past Monday night, I had a guy tweet me who told me like he hadn't watched the product in like over 3 months, but he decided to tune in tonight, and he can't believe that Jericho loses all the time. And I said to him, well, if you haven't watched in the last 3 months, how do you know Jericho's losing all the time?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I think I saw that tweet too.
Dude, or something along those lines. I'm like, you know what? I got to call you out. BS. All these guys, I haven't watched in like 6 months because but they know what's going on. And it's you can't have that much information just from reading results online. You know what I mean? Come on, man.
Right.
It's again. The WWE's philosophy. Here's the thing, though. When I see something on television that the WWE presents that I don't like, I will say to myself, man, I don't think I didn't like that. I don't think it worked. But I try to understand why they did it. In my mind, I'm trying to rationalize, okay, from a business standpoint, why would they go in this direction? Why would they put this match on free TV as opposed to waiting for a pay-per-view? Why would they? I hate to use this word. Why would they squash Sami Zayn? Which he technically didn't get squashed in that match. He did lose that last man standing match, but again, that
if
match
anything,
was
he
designed to build.
I was going to say, if anything, he made Strowman a legitimate star this past Monday on Raw.
There you go. That was the whole point. But then again, these guys are going to say, "Oh, well, they're killing Sami Zayn." But like they say, to make you got sometimes to make an omelet, you got to crack a few eggs. Mm-hmm. And Sami Zayn is Sami Zayn is a long-term plan. Don't worry about Sami Zayn. He will be fine. All these guys, look at Bray Wyatt. Everybody's complaining about Bray Wyatt. Bray Wyatt's 28 years old, 29 years old.
Right.
He's got a future ahead of him. This guy is not going anywhere anytime soon.
And you also have to think that, like, if he's an underdog character, he can't win every match, or else he's not an underdog, right?
Right.
That's true too.
Exactly.
And he's been booked better on SmackDown too.
Yeah, well, you see, there you go. Like, maybe down the road, maybe his future is to go to SmackDown and that's where he really makes a name for himself. Who knows?
Right.
Everybody's so concerned about what happened yesterday. Nobody realizes that the story hasn't been finished being told yet. Mm-hmm. Everybody wants to jump to the back of the book without reading chapters 1 through 19.
Going back to the aftermath TV stuff that you do now. Part of the cast you're also featured with is AC, who was formerly known as Santino Marella in WWE. What's it like working with him, and just kind of describe the relationship, how it all started out and whatnot?
Oh, well, Anthony or Santino, I've known him since he was in developmental. Really funny guy. Legitimately one of the funniest guys you'll meet. Like in the ring, outside the ring, in the hotel, at the restaurant. He's just a fun guy to be around and easy to get along with. And we always got along really well. And he's from this area. He's from Mississauga, Ontario, which is basically a suburb of Toronto. So, a good Canadian kid, as Don Cherry likes to say up here. He's added so much to the show. It's unbelievable because, here's a guy who's actually competed in the ring. I mean, like, for me, bringing a different dynamic as a referee, but him as an actual former WWE superstar just adds so much to the show. And it's a 4-person panel, and I got to mention the other two people, of course. Nug Nargang, who is an improv comic, who understands the entertainment aspect, and a huge wrestling fan. He's a huge wrestling fan, but brings an analysis from an entertainment standpoint. You know what I mean? Anthony or AC brings it from a wrestler's perspective. I try to bring it from another perspective altogether. And then the glue that holds the machine together is Jackie Redmond, who really is the host of the show and just keeps us all in check, pretty much.
Yeah, she's pretty good, and I think she might have a future with WWE as well, much like Renee Young.
I don't want to jinx it for her, because if that's what her goal is, I could absolutely see her fitting in there perfectly.
Definitely.
All right, so kind of switching gears back. I know toward the beginning, you mentioned that you've seen so many changes over the years in the business, and so to me, I really wanted to know what are your biggest differences that you've really noticed overall in the business from, like, when you first started out to now. Like, what are the biggest changes in wrestling, and are they good or are they positive or negative changes?
I think the changes that I've noticed from when I first started is the bar has been elevated with regards to the in-ring product. I mean, you see that the moves and the style, the in-ring style, has changed a lot. And for lack of a better term, more high risk, because when you're performing phenomenal moves that these guys are doing nowadays, there's always that increased risk for injury. So some of the guys are still fundamentally grounded and don't do too much, for example, high flying stuff. But that stuff has also changed, and also the the aspect of selling has changed. I mean, I remember when Shawn Michaels was around, he was the only one allowed to do a super kick because that was his finish. You know what I mean? So nobody did a super kick, because if somebody kicked out of a super kick, then how come it didn't work for him but it worked for Shawn Michaels? Oh, because his kick was better? No, it kind of, for lack of a better term, it kind of bastardizes his finish. Nowadays, you see multiple super kicks. Everybody's doing them. I remember when Jake Roberts did a DDT, that was it. Now, people are kicking out of tornado DDTs and, like hangman DDTs when they're draped on the ropes and stuff like that. It's right. The game has changed. It's come a long way from when Harley Race used to use a vertical suplex, as Gordon Soley used to call it, as his finish. Now a suplex is just like a move. Just a move.
Yeah, regular move in a match.
So in that aspect, I think that's changed a lot. The one thing that hasn't changed really much is, for the most part, is the storytelling aspect of a match. I'm a big fan of matches that have good psychology and tell a good story, because as Matt Hardy refers to them, as much as I can enjoy the monkeys of Spot, which I love that term. I mean, Matt Hardy's that's a different thing altogether. But anyway, as much as I could appreciate the moves that they do, doing them just to do them for me doesn't mean anything.
I agree.
It's like, all right, that was cool, but why?
Right.
But whether it's good or bad, this evolution of the business, I think both. I think it's good because that's basically what every sport, every entertainment vehicle evolves and changes and elevates their game, and that's what they're doing by doing this. But at the same time, you're also increasing risk, and that's the part that scares me the most.
Yeah, and it's definitely interesting because, as you said, the standard is now raised at an all-time high. Like, things you would see 10 years ago, it might have been considered great for that period of time, but now it's like you have to outdo that. How can you follow that? And that's where it's constant. And nowadays, the competition, because of that, has become more compelling. Like, you mentioned it earlier, all these indie guys now coming in, raising the bar, and just showcasing their talent at an all-time high and really showing how unique and special they are. Wouldn't you agree that WWE right now has the most talented roster ever, or maybe not ever, but maybe in the last decade or so, that this is perhaps the best roster that they have?
See, that's a hard one to pinpoint as well in this regard. The depth of the talent that they have right now, if you want to include the guys in NXT, when you look at guys like Shinsuke Nakamura and Samoa Joe and Bobby Roode, Ty Dillinger, DIY, the Revival guys, when you look at the depth of talent that they have, it's arguably the deepest that they've had in a long time. At the same time, and here's a misconception that people have with the Attitude Era. The reason for me why the Attitude Era is so regarded nowadays and people look so fondly back at it is not because of the content that was provided. Yes, the content was good for the most part. There was some bad stuff in the Attitude Era that was not good. But what they managed to do in the Attitude Era was to have superstars up and down the card from top to bottom that people cared about. That had a connection with the audience. The mid card in the Attitude Era, I would say, was the most over of any other era that I could at least recall, and that's what made the Attitude Era great. Nowadays, it's almost like in the hardcore fan's mind that if you're considered a mid carder, you're a failure, which is not, what I mean? It's like, oh my God, Dean Ambrose is now Intercontinental Champion. That sucks for him. How does it suck for him? I mean, like, I don't get this mindset. It drives me insane that it almost seems like a lot of the fans feel that. Look at The Miz.
Right.
The Miz headlined WrestleMania, but to me, right now, he's doing some of the best work of his career.
Yeah, he's on another level. Another level.
Yeah. And this is a guy who was world champion and headlined WrestleMania against John Cena, where The Rock got involved. But the stuff he's doing in 2016 and now 2017
better
is among the best stuff he's done in his career.
Yep.
Right. And it's funny because
he's not at the top of the card.
And yeah, and if you look back at some of the best names that ever were part of the company, they didn't even necessarily have to win a world championship to still be a Hall of Famer. You look at like Jake Roberts, like he never was WWF champion, but yet he's still regarded as one of the best to ever lace him up. And
Piper
so it's
as
like,
well.
It's crazy to me. Yeah. I mean, Piper, same deal. And I mean, these guys are amazing. Yeah.
Ted
I mean,
DiBiase, there's a whole list of guys.
It's amazing to think of all these great names, and they're some of the considered the greatest of all time. And yet now, if you don't win a certain number of world championships, then you're nothing. I mean, I think that is pretty crazy too. Like, I feel like the mid card has kind of lost its value, or maybe people have lost the placement of its value. They don't put any value on it anymore, and that's really a shame.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you talk about like the world title, I mean, like, do they want everybody to have a shot at the world title? Then what does it mean to win a world title if everybody gets an opportunity at it, at holding the title?
Especially if they're not ready yet.
Then they start complaining. Yeah, exactly. And then they start, well, they're playing hot potato with the title, but you guys want to see so many different guys that hold the title. I mean, like, geez, make up my mind, will you? It's this instant gratification that they want and feel that. I don't know if they feel that you're not successful if you don't hold a world title. And again, all the aforementioned guys you guys mentioned, and that's the furthest thing from the truth.
Mm-hmm. Now, what's your current stand on the brand split situation in the WWE? Like, do you have your favorite show to watch, whether it's Raw or SmackDown? Which one do you find yourself enjoying more? And what would you say to the critics about the 3-hour Monday Night Raw format?
First, for me, being from or the original SmackDown brand split, of course I'm partial a little bit to SmackDown. What I like about SmackDown, as opposed to Raw, I think it has a better flow. The 2 hours flow by nice, and it's easy. It's more, for the most part, it more concentrates on the in-ring as opposed to, like, there are other promo segments and all that sort of stuff, and their backstage stuff, but it's somewhat limited because I think the fact that they have the talking smack afterwards where they could do all that stuff,
right,
kind of allows them to be more focused on the in-ring wrestling product. So, and I'm a big fan of AJ Styles too. So, and I think right now SmackDown is the better of the two brands, in my opinion. As far as Raw being at 3 hours, I get it that it can be a chore to watch it for 3 hours. It's a lot of content, but by the same token, it's I understand why it's 3 hours. Again, looking at it from a business standpoint, it's money in the pockets for WWE, so they're not going to give up that third hour and give up that revenue that they're getting from USA Network. So it's up to the fan to decide whether he wants to sit there for 3 hours. Is he going to tune in for the first hour, the second and third? Or are they going to sit for the whole 3 hours? For the most part, fans are going to sit for the 3 hours, but. And will it affect the ratings? Maybe not. Who knows? Again, unless it's actually done, we don't know. But as far as it being 3 hours, I can't see them going back to 2 hours unless USA decides that they don't want to do 3 hours of wrestling anymore.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Now, in terms of the cruiserweight, I just am going to say I want to get your thoughts on the cruiserweight division. Do you think that that's been a good addition for Raw? I mean, you know how like the rope color changes and they have the the kind of the purple backdrop and everything. Do you think that's the way that's been implemented and used thus far? Has that been a positive aspect to help Raw and make it a better show? Because you figure if you got 3 or 4 segments out of the night dedicated to the cruiserweight division, that certainly makes the 3 hours maybe a little easier on the eyes, because you can kind of switch gears. Now all of a sudden you have cruiserweight wrestling and a little bit of a different style and a whole different division where only those guys are only in that division. That's the only way you can see them. So do you think that's been a positive for Raw? Or
I think it's a little bit of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I think it's positive that the cruiserweights are being showcased, especially on the flagship program, Raw, which it's a big boost for these guys. I'm happy for them that they're getting this opportunity. As far as aesthetically speaking, changing the ropes, the color of the ropes, I get it that they want to differentiate the cruiserweight division from the rest of the show and stuff like that. But then by the same token, by doing that, they're making it seem like it's completely separate from being a Raw exclusive brand.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes,
so,
absolutely.
I almost feel like for the actual 205 live show, maybe to change the color of the ropes to purple and do their whole thing, because it's the show is the cruiserweight show, 205
Right.
Live. If they're on Monday Night Raw, I almost feel like they should leave the ropes red and leave the Raw branding up, because it is Monday Night Raw, and I think it would make them feel more special,
legitimized,
them being on the flagship show, as opposed to making them feel like they are a separate entity.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
most definitely.
Well, speaking of colors, that's actually a great transition for the next question. And this one's going to be pretty funny. Back when you were a SmackDown referee, obviously the refs on SmackDown always were known for wearing the blue shirts. And to relate it with today's brand split, do you think that's important? Are you a firm believer of what you were just talking about, showing identity if you have a separate brand or a separate roster? So would you say that, the differentiation of colors, does that matter to you?
Not a whole lot, but by the same token, I liked it when we had the different colored ref shirts, because it differentiated the true brands a little bit, aside from the ropes themselves. I noticed what they do today with the referees. They are brand specific again in 2016/2017, but it's a subtle little changes. What they did was on they're black and white stripes, but on the logo, on the WWE logo, the Raw referees have a red border around it, and the SmackDown refs have a blue border around it.
Interesting.
It's subtle, but at least it's something to differentiate the two brand referees. And as much as I thought at first, maybe it wasn't a good idea to go full blown blue. Once we got the shirts, I kind of dug it.
Yeah,
still have a few hanging around too. I like
that's really cool. Yeah, no, I
break them
personally
out on
thought
the golf course every once in a while.
Yeah, I personally thought the colors were really cool too for the refs. I think it just made everybody feel like they were, specific to their brand, and like we mentioned, kind of like that identity thing. Now, kind of switching gears a little bit here, coming into 2017. Who do you think would be the favorite to win the Royal Rumble and to also headline WrestleMania this year? Do you have any names that either A, you want to see win, or B, that you actually think have the best legitimate shot at it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting, because the way it's being set up, I don't think there's a clear-cut, predictable choice as of right now. At least I don't think so. I mean, you look at, they're teasing Goldberg, Brock Lesnar. Who else is in the match right now?
Braun Strowman. Yeah.
Strowman, yeah.
Which I think may be a little
Jericho
too soon for him to be in that spot, the main event spot. Give him another year, let him build that monster up.
I agree.
Same thing with Baron Corbin, a little too soon for him. You could have a little surprise and have. I wouldn't mind seeing Chris Jericho win it and then go after Kevin Owens at WrestleMania.
I think that would be a cool story.
I think that would be a very cool story. I don't know. Other than that, that's one of the things I do like about this year's Rumble is that it is up in the air. It's unpredictable, and it's interesting that you have the respective champions defending their titles on the Royal Rumble. So John Cena's in the title match, Roman Reigns is in a title match, Does that mean they are excluded from the Rumble, or do they, after their matches, if they happen to lose their matches, will they insert themselves in the Rumble match? I mean, you can't count out Seth Rollins as well.
Yeah,
it's very much a toss-up this year, and I like the fact that there are several different directions you can go that I think would work. One of the things I take to heart is especially with professional wrestling, there's no right or wrong. There's only what works. You know what I mean? Right and wrong is subjective, but you can't argue with what works and what draws money at the end of the day. So again, going back to the Rumble, I like the fact that there are a lot of it's very open-ended, and I'm very curious to see what direction it goes after the Rumble.
I think there's definitely going to be a swerve. You mentioned the ones competing in the title matches, whether or not they'll be a part of the Rumble match. I'll go out on a limb and I'll say one of them are going to win it, whether it's like a John Cena or a Roman Reigns. I think the winner may come out of one of those title matches.
I think that could be.
And what if somebody?
Too.
Yeah, and what if one of the guys were to lose a title, let's say an AJ Styles or Kevin Owens, and they insert themselves in the Rumble like a whiny heel would do to us? You know what I mean? And they end up winning the Rumble. So you never know. Like, again, possibilities are. That's what I like. People who complain about predictability. Here you go.
Right.
Yep.
Now, what have you thought of Goldberg's return, and also the thoughts on that Survivor Series match with him and Lesnar, and how it was such a quick one, and that got a plethora of opinions and reactions, and that would kind of set the wrestling world on fire a little bit right after it happened. What have you thought of Goldberg's comeback? 'Cause, I mean, I think he's been excellent, but I don't know what you've thought.
No, I agree. Pleasantly surprised by it, because I was skeptical about his return and how the fans would react, and was he too far removed from this generation of wrestling fan? But I guess a lot of people still remember him, which is really cool. And I'm glad to see, because Bill Goldberg's is a nice guy. He really is a good guy. He's gotten over in an organic fashion.
Yeah,
and maybe. At this point, maybe the most over-organic babyface that they got. Surprisingly so, and I'm happy for him. And going back to the Royal Rumble, the Survivor Series match against Brock Lesnar, I was there live, which was kind of cool because it was here in Toronto. When, watching it live and sitting in the audience and just taking it all in and kind of listening to the fan reaction, when he hit the second spear and he hit that jackhammer, I went, in my mind, I said, "No way!" You know what I mean? And then just there was, and you could tell that when the referee counted 3, and the crowd was like, "Holy!" It happened. What?
It was kind of,
there was this big.
I was gonna say it was kind of like when Brock Lesnar broke the streak at WrestleMania in a way.
Yeah, and for a minute there, I said, wow, that really came out of left field. I don't think anybody saw that coming. And then after sitting and thinking about it, I go, that's pretty much freaking brilliant. You know what I mean? Because nobody expected that. And I don't, there are going to be guys that are, well, I knew. No, you did not. I'm calling BS. Here's the thing. And people complain about predictability again. They did something unpredictable, and a lot of people complain about not feeling real in professional wrestling. I said, like I said to somebody, I said, well, look, when you go to an MMA fight and Ronda Rousey makes someone tap out in 45 seconds, or like recently she got knocked out in 48 seconds, stuff like that happens. In the legit, see, wrestling is presented to emulate combat sports, and in combat sports, matches can end in a blink of an eye, and that's and surprisingly so in a lot of cases, and that's what happened here. That emulated that shock value of someone getting beat quickly, and then somebody said, well, it's different in wrestling because it's scripted, and we paid our money. Well, so did the other people pay their money when it lasted 45 seconds.
Right.
Do you feel cheated?
Of course. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Plus, let's put it this way. Goldberg had been out of the ring for 12 years or so, 12 and a half years. For him to have a 10, 12-minute match with Brock Lesnar, I think would have been detrimental to both of them because I don't think it would have been a good match. That's my opinion. I don't think they could have had a good match in 10 or 12 minutes. 6 minutes, maybe, keep it short. They could have had something maybe MMA-oriented, but at the same time, I think you accomplished many goals here. You got Goldberg over in a huge way. Brock Lesnar now will be interesting to see how he responds to this at the Rumble. There's so many directions you should go. In hindsight, I thought it was great. When I saw it, like for that first minute or two after, it was like, man, I don't know about this. Right. As I started to think about it, I kind of like it.
I could definitely see where you're coming from in terms of the whole 5-6 minute matchup. I actually thought that would be the length of the match as well. Like if there's anybody that was expecting more than 10 minutes, they're delusional, as you said, because we're talking about two athletes here. One of them who's now aged over time. Goldberg, Brock Lesnar. I think they could bode well for a 5-6 minute matchup. I mean, I think that's another underrated portion of wrestling. Like, time is not everything. I think you could still put on quality even in a short period of time. It's
like that shock value factor, and I think that's what they gave you, and that's what's leaving fans saying, okay, when's the next match? And that's a good perspective to have on this feud.
No, I agree with you guys. I think. It leaves more possibilities, and it opens up the possibility. It gives both guys potentially something to do at WrestleMania instead of having to go outside the box, and it's a marquee matchup again,
right?
In my opinion, and it leaves others open. Like everybody's speculating, like what's Undertaker going to do at WrestleMania? Is it going to be John Cena? Is it going to be AJ Styles? You know what I mean? So it leaves other guys open for potential big spots as well.
All right, and to wrap things up, we're going to transition into sports now. Final question. Jimmy, give us some quick predictions for this weekend's upcoming NFL wildcard playoff games. Who do you like?
Ooh, see, this is tough now with Derek Carr out for Oakland. I want to say that they are going to be in tough against Houston, but Brock Osweiler, I just don't feel him, man.
Neither do I.
I'm looking and I say, how are they favored by 4? I mean, give me a break here. That one there, I could see Houston squeaking it out, but by the same token, I mean, there's a lot of talent on that Oakland side, so I'm not going to count them out. I think the surprise of the weekend could possibly there are two, in my opinion, two potential huge upsets this weekend. I think don't overlook Miami with Moore at quarterback. I mean, he's filled in for Tannehill pretty well. I mean, Pittsburgh possibly outside of New England the best team in the AFC right now, but man, don't count them out, and don't sleep on Detroit.
Oh, really?
I know they're going into Seattle, and I know Seattle's a tough place to play, but with Richard Sherman questionable and that talented receiver core that they got in Detroit, don't sleep on Detroit. I mean, at least to cover it, if not win the game. And I think the Packers are peaking at the right time. It almost seems like Aaron Rodgers is like, okay, I feel like playing now. You know what I mean? Even when they're behind, it looks like, okay, time to try.
Yeah,
But James Starks being out, I think, is a blow to their run game. So they're going to be in tough against the G-men. But then again, it's Eli Manning, and I know, Lucas, you're in the New York area, and I don't know if you're a fan of the G-men, but
oh yes, I am.
Huh?
Yes, I am.
Sometimes Eli is frustrating, and I hope
for
your sake that you're not in frustration mode this weekend.
I'm scared. I'm really scared because, as you said, I mean, yes, everybody always loves to compare it to the past. The New York Giants have beaten the Green Bay Packers twice to go on and win the Super Bowl. But those were different years, and that's what fans don't seem to realize. And you just said it earlier, Aaron Rodgers is playing at a whole other level right now. Like, you can't compare this year's Aaron Rodgers to Aaron Rodgers of 2011. When he's hot, he's hot. There's nobody that can stop him. And heading into the playoffs, he has to be the hottest quarterback. I got to say, even with how elite our defense has been, I'm scared. I especially going in Green Bay, you know, it's going to be a scary game.
Yeah, it's you know, guys, Green Bay's a tough place to play, man. It's like nowhere else in the league. Let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So, do you have any Super Bowl favorites that stick out to you?
I got to tell you, man. I even without Gronk, man, the Pats just look so good.
Yeah, they sure do.
They are so darn scary, and
you had to tell Evan that he's the biggest Patriots fan.
Oh yeah.
I'm a Titans fan. I know people say, "What? You live in Toronto, you're born and raised in Canada, and you're a Tennessee Titans fan?" Well, I was a Houston Oilers fan way back in the day.
Oh wow!
With Earl Campbell and Dan Pastorini and Billy White Shoes Johnson. So when they moved to Tennessee, I kind of went with them, and then they brought the Texans in, and I said, "Well, I'm sticking with my original team, so I'm going to stay with the Titans." And I like where they're going for the future. I mean, I like the fact that I like Mariota. He's maturing. He's not, they kind of threw him to the wolves in the first year, but he's starting to show signs of becoming a good quarterback. The running game is coming. I like the running game with DeMarco Murray and Derrick Henry, who I think will be a good running back once given the opportunity in the NFL. They need a little help on the receiving core, though, and their defense can use a little bolstering. But I think at least they're going in the right direction. 9-7 this year is not a bad year for them. Narrowly missing the playoffs, which I think is good, because I think if they'd have managed to, if they didn't lose that game against Jacksonville the week before and then beat Houston, they would have ended up in first place and then making the playoffs. I think that would have made them think that they were ahead of where they needed to be. If you know what I mean.
Right.
Exactly. There's nothing wrong with being ahead of schedule when you're rebuilding, but as long as you realize that you're a little ahead of schedule, but that doesn't mean you can slow down in your rebuilding process. And that's what I'm looking at with the Toronto Maple Leafs right now. I'm a big Toronto Maple Leafs fan. Mm-hmm. For the last 50 years, they've been talking about rebuilding, and it finally looks like they're actually in a true rebuilding mode right now. And they got like 9 rookies in the lineup, and Mike Babcock as coach, and they've got the leadership group. They got Lou Lamoriello in the GM's office, and Shanahan as president, and I think they've taken all the right steps to rebuild. And for a long-suffering Leaf fan, it's going to take a little longer for them to get there. But again, I see positive steps in the right direction, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, it sure is.
All right, guys, you've been listening to former WWE referee Jimmy Korderas, and you can hear him on Aftermath TV at Sports Network in Canada, along with AC, Jackie Redmond. It's been a pleasure to have you on, and we look forward to having you on again, man. This has been fun.
No, I had a blast, guys. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
Has this been the longest interview yet?
Close to it, but I don't know. It's my fault too, because I tend to ramble a lot.
Oh no, it's perfectly fine. We all do the same thing here, right, Evan?
Oh yeah, that's our way to. That's how we live. We gotta talk. We love to talk.
Yeah, especially about politics. Maybe next time that's what we'll have you on for, right, audience?
Hey, I'm up for talking politics as long as nobody sends me nasty letters or to you guys. But anyway, it's like I always say, when it comes to politics, I consider myself politically agnostic. I don't subscribe to party politics because I think party politics. So saying that I am a Democrat or a Republican, or up here in Canada, a liberal or conservative or whatever. I think that places labels on people and and creates more of a divide. Like when people ask me here, they say, "Are you?" Because there's like 3 main parties in Canada, with a couple of fringe parties, but they say, "Are you liberal? Are you conservative? Are you NDP?" I said, "No, I'm Canadian." We're all Canadian,
right.
Canadian first. And that kind of throws them off. And I said, "Well, you must, like subscribe to some politics." Yeah, I said, "Yeah. If you want to be technical about it, there's some stuff on the conservative platform I like, and there's some stuff on the liberal platform I like. Maybe if both sides got together and did a little compromising, and worked together,
that would be nice.
Yeah, what a novel concept."
Right.
You know what I mean? Work together instead of against each other.
That should be the trend in 2017, but hey, who are we? Anyway, it's been fun. It's been a pleasure. Jimmy, next time we'll have you on again, without a doubt. As for us, we are signing off. Have a great day, everybody.